Start singing the songs first.
Here we go, Bruins, here we go.
Okay, we're on. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Board of Selectmen for Monday, May 12th. Mr. Carroll, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I will. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I may, this meeting will have the reorganization of the board. After that, input from the public and from members of the board. 7:20, Board of Selectmen scheduling procedure, Selectmen's meeting schedule, followed by 2015 goal-setting process. It won't be tonight, but we'll talk about the process that we're going to go through. Annual town board appointment process, schedule review, Selectmen's policies and regulations. We all have the booklets that we can look through. Selectmen vacancy, town-owned agricultural properties working group, possibility of making an appointment there. 7:40, we have a presentation by the Economic Development Committee. 8 o'clock, highway, roadway improvement plan update, solid waste tipping fee, contract amendment. 8:15 is for the town administrator, this is town administrator for finance and budget. A recap of our most recent town meeting. 8:25 other business, consent agenda, minutes approval, and 8:30 executive session on the collective bargaining strategy. Before we go on, I would like to congratulate Mr. Carr for his re-election to the Board of Selectmen, and Selectman Hebert on being elected also.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, there's only one person, I believe, that deserves to be chairman of this board, especially during the 300th celebrations coming up. Therefore, I would like to nominate Mr. Knox as chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
There's no second necessary on this. Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Selectman Carr as vice chair.
We'll just do one at a time first.
Sorry, my bad.
Okay, all those in favor of Mr. Knox as chair signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Congratulations.
next, we open the nominations for vice chair.
Okay, I'd like to nominate Selectman Carr for vice chair.
Any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor of Mr. Carr as vice chair signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And last, for the clerk for this year, nominations are open.
I'd like to nominate Selectman Hebert for clerk of the Board of Selectmen.
Any other nominations? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Input. Public input, anyone?
Hi, Betty Corey, I'm here as your town clerk. Just a reminder for anybody out there watching, anyone that was elected or re-elected on Saturday, they need to come in before their first official board meeting, and be sworn in. It doesn't matter if you were re-elected or not, it goes by your actual term. Also, today, Jennifer Stack did return her papers, so the June 28th election is, for Board of Selectmen, special election is Paula Bella and Jennifer Stack. So we do have a race for the June 28th. I will update you when I actually have all the information together as far as when absentees and everything are available. I got to certify Saturday's vote before we can go on to next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public input? Board input, Mr. McGurry? Selectman Hebert, anything for public, for board input?
Yes, just two things. I just want to say a big, huge thank you to everyone that's been involved in the campaign process, everyone that supported me. The results this weekend were phenomenal. We had 26.6% of the voters to come out. That's huge. So really proud of the town for getting out and taking action. And I'm thrilled to be here, so thank you very much. One other thing from a Long Lake Neighborhood Association, there is a lake cleanup this Saturday, May 17th at 9 a.m. Anyone's welcome to join us. It goes until however long you can really clean for. Bring gloves, anything you want to pick up garbage with, dress appropriately. There's poison ivy and ticks out there, but we'd love to see you there this Saturday, May 17th at 9 a.m. at Long Lake.
Scott? Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd also like to congratulate Selectman Hebert on her big win. Top vote getter, and she is going to bring a new perspective to the board, and I look forward to it. I also want to thank my supporters and the people who came out to vote on Saturday. As Selectman Hebert said, it was a great turnout. I got to talk to a lot of people. We had some good laughs, and I really appreciate everybody's support. I'm also proud of my campaign and the workers who ran it. It was an honest and respectful campaign that we ran during the entire election process. Although we had to endure some negative campaigning, we focused on the positive things that the Board of Selectmen have done. And what a great town Littleton is. The message resonated with the voters on Saturday, and it was quite evident by the results of the election. I'm very proud to serve the next 3 years for the town, and I look forward to moving the town forward to the next level. Thank you.
Just a couple comments. First of all, I just want to make a comment about our local newspaper. I thought at times they cover things that aren't always that positive. When there's so much happening in town that is positive, the positive things that happen with this 300 or spin-offs of those kind of topics, they seem to be overlooked by things that are just negative. I'd love to see our paper pick up. I know that being on the 300th, we've had the Lowell Sun come to a ball meeting, the Lowell Sun come to a general meeting, and we haven't had the Littleton Independent attend any meetings yet. So hopefully, on the positive side, the Independent will pick up the positive things that are happening. Just this Saturday coming up, right here in this building, in the multi-purpose room, is come to make a scarecrow workshop is happening. And the flyers are out. You're asked to bring bags and clothes and so forth, and they have a big plan on putting up scarecrows around the town as part of the 300th anniversary. So that's this Saturday, 10:30, in the multi-purpose room. So that's just another thing that's happening in town, which would be a great thing for our 300th anniversary. Opening ceremonies, I know that they're already doing dry rehearsals on it. That's on the 21st. I was lucky enough, again, today, I got a second letter from Senator Warren's office. She can't attend, but she's sending a letter and a videotape congratulating the town on the 300th anniversary. Representative Arciero has already answered before, and so has Jamie Eldridge. But as far as the other congressional members, we haven't heard a word from them, and 2 letters have gone out, so I'm a little bit upset with that. That's it for that. We'll go right into the next part. Board of Selectmen's scheduling.
Go back to the mail.
Oh, email.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. Just a few items to go through in the mail packet for tonight. One is that today we received from the Veterans Agent a reminder of the Memorial Day Parade on Monday, May 26th, and assembly is at 9 a.m. and parade begins at 9:30. And in your mail packets that you got electronically today, you got some more information about that. I wanted to share with you that this Thursday, we're launching a project that we've been working on for a while, which is a housing authority collaboration. That we were successful in getting some funding from MAPC for municipalities and housing authorities to work on a joint project of how we could achieve things better together rather than separately. We have participation from our own housing authority in Littleton, also Acton, Groton, Hudson, and Stowe are working with us on the project. So we hope that that there will be some things that will benefit how our housing authority can work, and maybe ways for them to partner with some of the neighboring housing authorities, and for us as a town to be partnering better with our housing authority. So I'm pleased that that's getting launched.
Just one thing on that, Keith. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, this piece of the housing authority and tracking the affordable housing in town is so important, so imperative for 40B projects. And we heard about 40B project during the campaign. Well, this is one big piece that, you know, Littleton is lacking in, and that's tracking and making sure that our 40B affordable housing component is in place. So it's a very important meeting, so those folks interested should absolutely show up
Yeah.
on Thursday.
Yeah, we'll have, and which leads me to the next one, there will be a public forum that we're scheduling now for Tuesday, June 3rd at 6:30. It will be at the middle school cafetorium, and that will be the official launch of our housing production plan update. And that process will also be facilitated by MAPC. We sent out flyers with all the electric bills in the last month. So that's really an opportunity for folks to indicate what sorts of, what we can be doing as a community to better address our housing needs. There was some discussion at town meeting that a particular proposal for zoning wasn't comprehensive enough or wasn't focused on what people wanted. Well, this will be an opportunity for us to hear from folks about what would work, so we're looking forward to that. Also, we have the Friends of the Council on Aging has a volunteer luncheon that's scheduled for this Wednesday, May 14th at noon in the multi-purpose room in this building. And we have, I just want to share with you the information that I'm being nominated for Vice President of the MAPC, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. I've been working on that executive committee board for the last 3 or 4 years, and I've been invited to go up to the next leadership level. So I'm grateful for that show of support. I think there's an awful lot of value added that Littleton gets out of our participation with not only MAPC, but the magic subregion of MAPC that I've been sharing for the last few years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks. And let's see, one other update thing that I wanted to mention, in addition to officials getting elected on Saturday, that there was also a ballot question that was approved where we adopted the amended Community Preservation Act, which will allow future town meetings as soon as this November to begin to put local funds of the town's choosing into the Community Preservation Fund to increase the base for state matching funds. As far as I can tell, we are the first town to have accepted that provision of the law. It was changed in 2012. At least one city, maybe some others have adopted it as well, but we appear to be the first town. And so there will be the opportunity for a number of policy discussions in the coming months about how do we prepare ourselves for that. But so that is also something else that's happened, and I think that's all I have.
Just going back to the Housing Authority collaborative meeting, I see that Lisa Larrabee obviously gets one of the...
She's participating.
Participating.
Yeah.
Any members from a Housing Authority that...
Not that I'm aware of it. I mean, it's been focused, the focus of the project is on the Housing Authority executive directors, and we have representation from a number of them that will be there. And myself, the town manager from Acton, and others will be there as support. But we want to try to have it be driven by the Housing Authority executive directors. And our Housing Authority is unanimously supported Lisa's participation in the project. Her board in Groton, where she splits her time between the two towns, also unanimously supported it. So I'm hoping that we can see some benefits that come out of that.
All right, moving on in the agenda then. Taking a look at Selectmen's meeting schedule for the summertime. proposed dates, June 9th, 23rd of June, July 14th, 28th, August 11th, and 18th, and September 8th and 22nd. And
I couldn't see, are there any celebrations, 300 celebrations that may be in conflict with these
No.
dates? Okay.
No,
I couldn't
it's,
see any.
yeah, June
21st,
June 21st
September
is
13th.
kicked off, yeah, and so this avoids those.
Ready?
Yep.
I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to schedule the following Board of Selectmen's regular meetings for the dates indicated at 7 PM in room 103 Shattuck Street Building. June 9th and 23rd, 2014, regular meetings. July 14 and 28, regular meetings. August 11 and 18, 2014, regular meetings. September 8 and 22nd, 2014, regular meetings.
It's been moved and seconded on that summer schedule. Any further discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? So that- Moving on to the next part, that Keith was nice enough to join together our goals from last year, which,
With updates on all of
Updates.
those goals, yeah. So now that you've settled on what your meeting dates are, the next thing would be to choose from those dates when you want to schedule your preliminary goal-setting session. Typically, the board has scheduled 2 nights regarding goals. One is to have the board, each board member, in preparation for the first meeting, come up with your proposed list of goals for the coming year. Get that to me prior to the meeting. I can give you back a matrix that compares, similar ones as a jumping off point. Then at an initial meeting, you do some preliminary goal setting amongst yourselves, which would then be the subject of a public hearing held at a subsequent meeting. Last year, the public hearing was held on July 8th, which is actually one of the earlier dates. And I got to say, that a date like that works out pretty well, because the further we go into July or August, with goals not yet adopted, it's more problematic. So if it's possible to do the preliminary goal setting in June and then have the hearing either in late June or early July, that would work out, I think, pretty well for the.
We only have one more, do we have another meeting in May?
You don't have another meeting in May. You could, an open night is, and there's.
I'm not looking for another one.
No, there's two reasons for that.
I was thinking,
Well, there's 2 reasons for that. 2 weeks from tonight is Memorial Day. 1 week from tonight is my wife and I's 30th anniversary. So it would be my hope you would not meet on either of those days.
I think you're right, though, the earlier.
Yeah, June 2nd is also an open Monday night if you wanted to try it.
We've tried this in the past, and, I think the best way we've done it is to just set one meeting aside for the goals and don't put nothing else on the agenda, and just get in and hammer them out.
So why don't we try that on the 2nd?
Yeah, June 2nd.
I don't have a problem with that. For the
Because I'm
preliminary.
sure some other things will come up
Yeah,
that'll require our immediate attention by then.
so we're going to schedule another meeting in June?
June 2nd, special meeting.
Is that what your intention was?
Yeah.
Yep.
Just hope for the preliminary.
And also, last year we had 60 or 70 goals, I think. I think if we try to narrow it down to things that we think that we can accomplish within the year, I think it's going to save us time and be able to concentrate on the more important issues.
Totally agree. And is there any way to learn about the progress made on all these goals? Maybe some weren't even action, and so they're obvious to drop off or things like that. How do I learn about that?
Probably the best way is to sit down and talk to Keith.
I tried to, for those where there were progress on the goals, if there's no progress indicated in italics on a goal, then probably something we didn't get to, we can divide it over.
Okay, that'd be great, thank you.
And I think if we get back to, we've done it in the past where we have goals that, you know, put on the long-term list, so we don't want them to drop off the spectrum and, you know, right away, so let's make a secondary long-term list and no action taken in the current fiscal year, but as we move forward, I think it's a good reference. 'Cause there are a lot here, and there may be some still good ones that haven't been acted on, but want to carry forward.
Yeah.
You know.
I would make one suggestion, that as we go through this, and public input's a big piece of establishing goals, that we somehow keep a live document online so that when the meeting happens, we have the public in here, they will have had plenty of opportunity to review it and be prepared to comment, and that will probably make it a little more efficient when we actually have the public hearing. So sort of a living, breathing document as we add stuff to it. I know it's more work for Keith, but.
Well, I can certainly, that's all going to be dependent upon when you get me your goals.
There you go.
So if I have them, let's say typically by the Friday, you know, they would go out on the Friday before the Monday meeting. So if they were ready for that packet, that would be about the soonest that I could upload them to the website if I get more of them. If I get them sooner than that, I can upload them.
Can we get this?
Sure, yeah, I can put that up now, yeah. I can put the progress update on the previous board's goal.
So by the 28th, should give you plenty of time to post it, if we get them to you by the 28th? It gives you a couple days, or you need more time?
If, they will be posted by that Friday,
Okay.
because that's when the agenda packet goes out. So whatever I've got by that Friday is
Good to
go
go.
to press, yeah.
Okay.
So do we need to vote for the June 2nd date?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we've, motions on the table to have an additional meeting on June 2nd. And moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Votes.
And then on that June 2nd, you'll vote, if you complete your work, then you'll vote to schedule a public hearing for whatever date looks good from there. So, thanks.
Next on the agenda is appointments. On June 30th of every year, a number of appointments and vacancies become available in certain boards that our board has to fill. I know in the past, we've actually broken this down, so it wasn't an all one meeting. I don't know what the feeling of the board is this time. Do you want to break it up or try to accomplish it all in one night?
It did take us two different evenings, and part of it was that for some of the applicants for a particular committee were not available on one night, and so we tried to steer everyone to a different night. So if we could do, since you've got regular meetings on June 9th and 23rd, we could split up this list and do half of them one night and half the other.
That would be fine. You got 23. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So does it make any difference who we do first, or just take?
No, we probably do them based on who we've heard back from and who's able to come to which meetings. But all the terms that are coming up would be ones that otherwise expire on June 30th, so we want to get it done prior to that. And May 23rd, by the way, is the posted deadline for receipt of applications, either for appointment or reappointment. And the list of town board positions that are the subject of appointment now are all listed at the town's website.
Now, do individual boards get notified? Do you notify the boards?
Yes, they do. Yeah, we notify each board we let them know who the applicants are as well, because we're typically under your policies, we invite the board themselves to express a preference on who they would recommend. Some opt to and some do not. But all the boards, of all the members whose terms are up have been notified and asked to indicate whether they'd like to reapply or not.
Okay, any preference, or just leave it up to Keith how to divide it up?
We can work with the chair and vice chair on scheduling which ones for which night.
I think I wouldn't want to see any on June 2nd. I think if we just leave June 2nd for goals, and then just leave that alone for the June 9th and June 23rd for these appointments. Ready?
Looking for a motion.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to schedule interviews and appointments for its annual town board appointments process for June 9 and June 23rd, 2014.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. The appointments on the dates specified. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, that's another thing coming in. Selectmen's rules, regulations and policies, we all have that book in front of us.
Yeah, one of the amendments that you made just last year in going through your rules was to pick, was to actually write in that the annual review of policies and procedures should occur at the first meeting in June. That's not going to occur on June 2nd, which will be your first meeting, but that, I think you ought to pick, the 9th or 23rd or whatever works out. And we probably need to set aside, 45 minutes
Good
for
chunk.
that initial discussion too, and earlier in the evening when you're all fresh.
Yeah, we had that problem last year.
I agree.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I would like to suggest that we put off any discussion about changes in regulations and policies with respect to the Board of Selectmen's policies until we have a full board. We have an election coming up. A new person will be seated. They are going to be an integral part of this board for 2 years as a minimum, and I think it's not so time critical that we need to proceed without a full board seating.
Yeah, you can do July 14th.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
It's a great idea.
That discussion always works better with an odd number.
So we'll go to July 14th?
July
Regular
14th. Yep.
regular meeting? Have a motion?
Yes, please.
Move that the Board of Selectmen schedule the, move that the Board of Selectmen schedule the conduct of the annual review of the Selectmen's regulations and policies for the board's regular meeting on July 14, 2014. July 14, 2014. A lot of 14s in there.
Would you like to repeat the motion?
I'll try again. Hold on one second. All right, here we go. The schedule, to conduct. All right, here we go. Move the Board of Selectmen schedule to conduct its annual review of Selectmen's regulations and policies for the board's regular meeting on July 14th, 2014.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Moving right along at 3E. The Agricultural Working Group, Chairman Jamie Cruz would like to have a meeting very soon. This was established to have 2 members of the Board of Selectmen, members from the Agricultural Commission, and we have members from Conservation. With the resignation of Selectman Bronson, we have an opening there. So,
Mr. Chairman?
yes.
I will be unable to serve on this committee, so you have 2 openings.
We have 2 openings for that working group.
When's the new guy show up?
I would suggest if we didn't have 2, we have to have 1 to attend that meeting.
I'm okay with it. I'll be good with it.
Go for it.
Selectman Hebert wants to join.
Sure. I would
I
love
mean-
to.
Unless we wait till the 14th to let the new selectmen have an opportunity.
But the one thing about this, they want to get going on this right
Yeah,
away.
Jamie was hoping to,
I'm good.
I can as well.
you established it in December, and Jamie would like to get a meeting this week, if possible. This Wednesday night.
You may have to
I
change
see
that.
Anna Mayer's on there. She's the president of the Long Lake Neighborhood Association, so that's cool.
So do we have a motion?
Yeah, move that the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint Selectman Carr and Selectman Hebert as the two representatives for the working group established on December 16, 2013, to explore best practices, potential leases, and policies for all town-owned agricultural land.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Congratulations for your appointment to your first committee.
Thank you.
It's a little bit early, but
Yes.
If I may,
Yeah.
there is no posting as yet for Wednesday, so the meeting.
Okay, so it won't be this Wednesday. Good, so we have, well, we would have needed it by
Yes.
3 o'clock this afternoon. So we'll let you know when your first meeting is.
next thing on the agenda is the Economic Development Committee update. If you want to come forward, gentlemen and ladies. But do we have some shy members?
Yeah, we do. It's wonderful. Appreciate the support.
I don't remember them as being shy.
Well, I'll introduce the members that are here.
Thank you,
Mr.
Larry.
Chairman. Ivan Pagasa, Chairman of EDC. We have Scott Lewis, Neil O'Leary, Paul Glavy, lovely Miss Flanagan, Lisa Flanagan. Anybody else here?
Oh, you make me blush.
Yeah.
We are missing a few.
Yeah, we are missing a few. Ian Emery, Ed Coy Kendall, Rob Brownson,
Joe Brown.
and Joe Prentical, other members.
How long have you been meeting?
Since end of October, or October timeframe. So we're here tonight to give you a quick update on what we've done to date, and things that you may have some questions, whatnot. We're moving forward, but we just wanted to touch base with you, sort of get everybody on the same page.
So,
All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Scott. He's gonna
Scott's
start
all
the
yours.
presentation.
So, as Ivan said, we're really just here to give you an update. One of the very first instructions the board gave us was to form as a committee and to establish our mission. And I'm not sure we ever formally presented that back to the board. So that was a good introduction for new members, but it's fulfilling the request to the rest of the board. So we're going to do that tonight and validate that we're working in the direction that you intended when you appointed us. Cover just very quickly how we formed, kind of what's driving us, what we think we need to focus on, and what we're going to do next. There's materials in the back of the presentation that we're not going to read tonight for the sake of brevity that are more of a activity-oriented update of what we've been doing. If you're interested in that, you're welcome to read it. So that initial instruction was to form as a committee and establish our mission, and we've identified the need to focus the town of Littleton proactively on avenues for business growth, increasing and diversifying the tax base through economic development consistent with community character. It's a little bit of motherhood and apple pie, but it's actually important when you put the words all together, especially the balance of community character and some development, because we all know that a little more revenue wouldn't be a bad thing. And so I'll go into a little more detail of what we mean by that as we go through. That's the high-level statement. From an objectives perspective, based on what we've learned so far, we think Littleton needs to proactively pursue select development to increase our commercial tax base. Taxes have grown as fast or faster than home values and faster than both household and per capita income. Seniors and lower income families in particular note they have a hard time staying in this town that they love and has so much to love over time. Taxes keep going up and income doesn't, and so more of their income is consumed. So rather than let development find us and fight development that does not fit the character of this great town, we propose pursuing a decided growth strategy of development that's consistent with the character of Littleton, beneficial to the town and the region. The approach can make Littleton more affordable to the average resident while sustaining and even increasing the appeal to all residents. So as a board-appointed committee, we formed to advise the selectmen and the town on development strategies and opportunities, strengths and weaknesses in our ability to attract the kind of development that is good for and in Littleton, and to recommend marketing strategies and needs. We think the best way to pursue our charter and mission is to base our research on real data, understand and consider the town's fiscal projections. We want to have plenty of community input. We already know that preserving the character of the town is really important to the community. You hear it over and over again, whether from elected and appointed officials or from townspeople themselves. We also want to gather more input from the residents. So we'll work to build on the strengths of Littleton and the region that we're part of. One of the things we've learned in our research is that you get to market more than just your own strengths when you're part of a region. We're pragmatic, but not pessimistic. So we're going to focus on meaningful and productive opportunities that balance who Littleton is with what Littleton needs. There's always opportunities for increased efficiency and operational excellence, and Littleton can be proud of many improvements over the years. And we're confident that there's more gains that can be found, but we think Littleton runs pretty lean, and we're not going to be able to cut our way to address our fiscal challenges in the future. So we do need some development. Residential rates have been managed by shifting the tax burden to the commercial and industrial properties, but we're near the legal limit of what we can shift there. We can't go to that pond anymore. So our existing debt service is declining at the moment, but we know there's new projects lined up that could potentially take their place. And though it's easy to think that things like the Point will solve all our problems, that revenue is actually already spoken for in the projections.
And actually, one thing that we keep hearing is, time and time again, the citizens of this town think the Point is going to solve all the problems for this town. I think it's very important for people in this town to understand that that revenue is already spoken for. Okay, it's not going to save this town in the future as far as generating the revenue that we're going to need down the road.
And we'll talk some more about educating the citizens a little bit later in the presentation as well. So our commercial tax rate isn't all that competitive when you look at the raw rate. There's only a couple of towns in our part of Massachusetts who do split rate, and we're kind of at the extreme end of the split as I mentioned earlier. However, the actual taxes a business pays are based on the rate and the value of the property, and we have somewhat more attractive property values than some towns. So when you put the two together, it's not as bad as it might seem. Also, we have a great location at the intersection of some major roads, and some of the costs in this area are certainly lower than going closer to Boston. And so we actually are reasonably competitive in a number of ways, but we have some weaknesses. The major weaknesses that aren't tax-related that most people have already heard about tend to be things like lack of amenities, which we've heard going back to IBM coming to town and from other businesses. Open space can have a positive impact revenue-wise in a town. We were presented with a report that gave us some good information about the amount of money that you get when you have an open space in your town compared to the cost of maintaining that space. The slight challenge with that is the benefit tends to be more to the Commonwealth, to the town in some cases, depending on what businesses in the area exist that can get business from people visiting the open space. And when the open space is purchased by the town and leased back for things like agricultural use, actually the town tends to never make their money back. Doesn't mean it's bad, because there's other reasons to do that, but going in knowing what you're doing, it's not necessarily a way to generate positive revenue. Most of the value of that report comes down to do people that visit your open space do business with other businesses in your area, and is open space less expensive for the town to serve than residential properties, which it usually is. It doesn't have kids to put in school and all kinds of other things. Making the community more valuable overall is really important as a long-run factor, and I want to make sure we don't lose sight of that in our work. We think that we get a faster return on some of our fiscal challenges from new development in the commercial space, but it's not the only thing we should focus on. So there's a limited number of commercial and industrial parcels in Littleton, less than 100 of each. And so it's very hard, and that's why our tax shift is as extreme as it is. It's very hard to generate a lot more revenue when your assessed property value that's commercial and industrial is less than 20% of all the value in town. The number of properties is a different ratio than assessed values. Businesses tend to be worth more. So without more commercial development, residents will bear a greater proportion of our growing costs. And if we have limited opportunities to develop, and we're focused on preserving our rural character, we think it's really important to maximize the compatibility and value of each development project, which is why planning and pursuing the right businesses rather than seeing what comes should be more productive for the town. So we started to confirm the existing and identify new areas of interest for development in Littleton, ranging from addressing the amenities shortage and transportation needs, and there's activity on many of these already, by the way, and planning for and pursuing the growth that makes this the most sense for Littleton. We think new development should bring services that residents want and need closer to home. It also should bring new revenue sources to address our projected fiscal gaps. We also know that we need to expand and position our value to the kinds of businesses that we want in town, promote our strengths, address our weaknesses. And we have strengths and weaknesses across things like regulation, tax rates, infrastructure, expedited permitting, which the town has done some good work on. We also think that we need a profile of the kinds of businesses we want in town so we know who we're marketing to. And it comes down to, can we go out and chase the people we want instead of waiting to see who shows up? Well, it starts with identifying who those should be. And that could be names of businesses, but more likely it's industries and types of businesses. We also need to understand why businesses have come to Littleton and why others have not, so we can put that into our list of things we might need to address or emphasize. We also want to analyze trends to identify future opportunities that we can proactively prepare for and pursue. I don't know when the next IBM is going to consolidate all of their Massachusetts holdings to one place, but if we can see that coming and get in front of it, it's something we potentially could attract. Other things could happen. A bunch of biotechs could decide Cambridge is way too expensive and they want to go out west, but they've got to be near the commuter rail. We need to discover how we can leverage open space for greater value to the town, consistent with the purpose of open space. So do we have opportunities in agriculture and agrotourism? Do farming and orchards create revenue? And what are the tax and regulatory constraints to pursuing those opportunities? We don't want to reinvent the wheel, so we want to use best practices. So if we can learn of things that have worked in other towns, we'll examine those. We're not going to duplicate somebody else just because they already wrote it down. But if it actually makes sense in Littleton, we'd like to leverage things that have been proven to work. Ultimately, we want our work to result in adoptable, workable laws, policies, and actions, and things that have worked elsewhere do have the advantage of having some proof. Finally, we'll be collaborative and cooperative with the master plan update process. Economic development and master planning kind of go hand in hand. And if we coordinate our efforts, we'll both avoid redundancy and accidental gaps. And we think we're more capable together than independent. So you may have noticed I said a bunch of things in the form of a question and didn't give you an answer. We're early in our work in some ways. So our most immediate next step is more information gathering and learning. Some of us are very experienced at economic development, having been through past processes, and others of us are new. Littleton's situation and the environment around us have also evolved since the last time an economic plan was done. So we're going to engage the town for input and with education. We'll survey interests and priorities, and we'll use the psychodemographics of the town to understand what businesses have the best opportunity here. We'll also propose voter education on our town's economics, upcoming challenges, and the benefits of driving development instead of reacting to it. And use Littleton Community Television, the town website, social media, press, and otherwise to get the word out and do some of that educating. We're going to evaluate our economic development planning process that we use to make sure that we know what is our work to do, what is the work of the master planning process, and what from our work is input that needs to go to the master planning process. Again, we want to avoid duplication. We also want to not leave something out by accident from both sides. And as I mentioned, we do need to understand who we're going to pursue, but we also think profiling the businesses that we're best suited to now, profiling the businesses that we want to attract, and reconciling the differences can be very valuable for us. So we're going to apply a fairly lightweight, simplified process, but a strategic planning type of process to establish the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, understand our competitive position, develop economic development strategies, and then identify the options with the highest potential. We'll outline and propose a marketing plan to include content for the town website, positioning and messaging for promotion, and content for responding to businesses and commercial real estate professionals. We've seen some other towns in Massachusetts that have a living in and a doing business in section of their website, for example, that helps to market the town and provide some basic information that might be of interest to people. So we know that economic development is about more than commercial development. We believe that select compatible development is critical to addressing Littleton's needs in a proactive way that brings us desirable development and takes us away from reactive, conflicted development or no development at all. Accordingly, we've made business development a top priority, but we've not excluded from our scope other areas such as how to preserve and increase the value of Littleton to its residential and commercial residents, create jobs, bring more business to our existing businesses, or fill empty commercial space with desirable tenants. We're considering these areas in the context of new development that more directly addresses the revenue needs that accompany the services and infrastructure our residents require. So our intent is to understand how Littleton can best grow and attract all the kinds of businesses that are most compatible with and most interested in being part of that growth to come grow with us. That's what we've been up to so far. So thanks for listening while we presented. We think we're off to a good start, but we're interested in your point of view, and now's a good time to give us a course correction if we're not doing what you think you asked us to do.
I think it's important if you could mention to the public, you made the statement that the point's not the solution. And you want, just like you said, you probably had the same comment over and over again. Can you, while you have the chance here, say why that is so and how it affects the economy?
Well, it's based upon data that we gathered in working with Bonnie, with the town finances, looking at those projections over the next 5 years. It's in the numbers, that money is already spent, that revenue that's coming in. You know, correct us if we're wrong, but that's what we heard. So I think that's an important message to convey, back to the town, that they need to understand that.
There will be some revenue as far as meals tax, room tax, but it's a very small percentage of addendum levy.
Good.
I'll just thank you for the update. I mean, I think you're absolutely on the right path. One question I did have you thought about talking to mass development over in Devens? I mean, that's a community that was based on exactly what you folks are talking about right now.
We've put together a list of a lot of entities, whether it be private commercial brokers, folks who do business in town, folks who don't, government agencies, other resources like that, and we'd like to kind of include those in our next phase of folks we're going to meet with. To date, I know both Scott and I haven't indicated it's in your backup material, but we met with a lot of the town officials. We've done a lot of the board level discussions internally so far to kind of bring ourselves up to speed and review data, but we kind of, I think the next phase of going out would include those sorts of people.
Yeah, and in regards to business owner, existing buildings out there, the first one that comes to mind is FIBA Technologies over in the old Sandville site, and what they have done, and they're looking for tenants. One thing I had the pleasure of touring over there, and again, the amenities came up. That's a common theme we have heard, no matter who you talk to.
Right.
It seems it's the amenities. If you talk about Upper Foster Street, Taylor Street, Porter Road, it's all the same. So
It is,
that's a critical piece.
It sort of hurts doubly and can benefit doubly if addressed, because in a lot of cases, the amenities they're talking about is where can I go for lunch, for example. And if they go for lunch in town and we get the meals tax, we win twice, because the business is more attracted to town and we get some revenue from that potentially, as we understand it. So and at the same time, we don't want to create a town that's a strip of fast food restaurants. So there's an important balance to be struck. But it is something that needs to be looked at. And the other thing that we discovered, just in terms of making sure that we all in the public understands some of the key challenges, filling existing space doesn't help very much, excepting perhaps if it makes the rent go way up as a component of how their valuation gets established, because when they couldn't rent, then they couldn't get a good price assessment on the building. But if we fill a space that's already paying its property taxes, we don't get any more property taxes ordinarily. And so new development, it has to be a component if a goal is more revenue.
A distinction with that might be renovated existing space that
Doesn't affect.
particularly in the common area, if there's new opportunities, which, Don's discussed a number of ways of how that can happen, that make some of those properties more intensively used or used by higher end tenants than than is currently there.
Yeah, I think it's just another piece of your puzzle.
Right.
And that, I think, as you develop an economic plan, and bring those folks into it, I'm sure they'll have a lot of input in regards to not only bringing in stuff, but hey, help us out here too, because they want to be part of your marketing piece. And I'm sure they'd be more than willing to help you out with that too.
We've looked at some towns that have done tours of empty space in the town, so that they bring in a bunch of potentially interested commercial occupants, and they show them the spaces in an organized. By the way, one of the sort of minor goals that was written down when you appointed us all was, can we get some of the businesses to clean up a little bit? If you want the empty properties to clean up, tell them people are coming to see their business, right? And so those tours have a benefit there as well. So there's some things we started to look at, but as Paul said, we started our homework internally, talking with Bonnie, talking with the assessor, talking with other people to understand their actual challenges and the potential ways of addressing it, and we're ready to really start to branch out and talk to external parties in a greater way now.
And I think, your timing is spot on. We've got the master plan coming up.
Exactly.
And we have opportunity here just to really make a good presentation to all the companies and get some new development in.
Right.
So I have.
I have essentially three questions. One's more or less of a comment. We talked about building amenities and in the areas that will support the businesses. One of those areas is Taylor Street, Foster Street intersection, which we've already made some progress on, at least in the amenity of transportation. But what I'm hoping you will incorporate into your considerations is a strategy of reuse of brownfields versus greenfields, so that a redevelopment strategy is a higher priority than an all-new development. We have a lot of underutilized buildings in this town, and with some intelligent ways of dealing with that, changing the way, the structure that they were originally built under, may provide us a lot of opportunities within the footprint we already have set aside for this, without looking at new places to develop. Another point you talked about is conversation with the community. And I was wondering if you had any plans or were giving consideration to calling that input from what is the big majority of the community, and those are the ones who don't come to meetings. Those are the ones who don't engage easily because they have busy lives. Those are the ones that pay the majority of taxes in this town, and they are the majority of the town. So I hope that you can, if you haven't discussed it, I hope.
We have. We're looking at surveys both online and potentially through other forms, because not everybody's online, but many people
And it's
are.
residents and business owners. It's not just residents. We need to hear from the business owners as well.
From the work of the voter participation committee, this is a tough thing to crack.
It is.
Because you need to reach people that really have priorities in life that are pretty fundamental. Go work, take care of your kids, get them through school,
Right.
and day-to-day living, and trying to engage them in this is very important, because they are the majority of this town. So, and the other thing is, you talked about improved tax base through increased value of commercial properties. In other words, a piece of property would render more cash. If we are successful at this, have you looked at what the impact would be on, is if you increase the value of businesses and thus the value of the community, have you looked at the impact of what is going to be on the taxpayer when their homes increase in value? And how much more taxes they will be paying because they simply, their valuation goes up.
Not specifically. No, and the comment in the presentation is really oriented around quality of life, which can have that effect on home values, no doubt. A lot of that quality of life already exists in Littleton, so in some ways it's baked in, but we think that certainly if you have more businesses here that are attractive to people to want to work to and they want to live near work, you're going to get some more demand for out here. So I think we thought about the inputs to that question. I don't think we've thought about the math that would give you the answers to those questions, but it is a factor that to be considered.
Because for the those of us who are part of the generation that are now becoming the majority of the population, the over 60 group, they're going to be operating more or less on fixed income.
That's
And
right.
that's going to be a huge factor for them. If their property values go up tremendously, that's going to put pressure on them, just like it does if we have to raise taxes.
So I'll call it a working assumption for now, because we have to validate it, to your point. But our working assumption has been that if we can sufficiently increase the commercial and industrial tax base through appreciating values, through new businesses, et cetera, that we can actually start to unwind some of the shift so that we become even more attractive to businesses within reason, but that because of the levy limit rules, we actually don't necessarily raise the taxes on the homes. Even though their assessment goes up, you still got to fit the levy limit, so the mill rate gets forced
That's right,
down
yeah.
in that
So the
math.
taxable rate goes down, the
So
assess goes up.
So we have to look at, so what ends up happening is the assessed value drives your revenue increase instead of raising your mill rate, driving your, but you still have to fit in the levy limit. And we seem to consume the entire levy limit every year, so whichever one drives it up is gonna hurt those of us over and under 60 just
Right.
as much. If we could slow it down by getting some more revenue, that would be good.
Yeah, because the pressure is shifting to the residents. That's where the pressure is.
It has to
And-
now.
And the problem is, we've got to do something so that down the road, that pressure isn't exactly what you said, unbearable for people that are trying to stay in this town.
Yeah, well, specifically, if say my house goes up $50,000 in value, well, then my tax rate's going to go up. Now, it'll take a while for Anita to catch up with me, but it'll, it's.
Absolutely. I joined this committee because I moved here in 2003, and in 2013, my property taxes had doubled.
Well, what's the stat now that we had in the last 10 years? The taxes have,
There was, I don't have the exact percentages in mind, but we can certainly provide them later. But the percent increase in the property taxes, if you look at the growth rate as a percentage, not obviously the absolute dollars, had grown substantially more than median income. And depending on what period of time you exactly pick, also more than the value of the houses. And so we'd like to slow that down a little bit.
yeah.
So that at least that portion of the income that goes towards that can stay closer to the same amount of your income, and hopefully your income's increasing and everything increases. Even if you chart inflation against those numbers, the tax rate doesn't look good.
Right.
And that's what, is another factor for people on a fixed income.
Thank you.
Melissa?
And I'm, just learning about these things, but your approach sounded really logical and well thought out to me. It was a great presentation. I had written down some questions and you answered them in the midst of your presentation, so well done. I really like the idea to profile the businesses that we want so we can go seek them rather than just accepting what kind of comes our way, so great job. I'm looking forward to hear more.
I just have one last question, if I can. During your study that you're going to continue with, is there any part of that might consider what wastewater treatment would do for the common area in that area that has been talked about? I know it's a word that pops up and everyone gets upset about sometimes, but it is something that a lot of people consider a way of working with brownfield areas that are now empty in the common area.
I think that's going to come up as we progress through. That's going to be something that will pop up as far as what's possible, what's not possible, what do you have to do to make, these brownfields more viable. But that's one component.
Yeah.
That's one piece of the town. There's other areas that the Foster Street area as well. And we learned some information on that Foster Street area from the assessors, that buildings that have sold, there's a wide range of what they're going for per square
2-to-1
foot.
ratio in some cases.
Yeah, so,
For properties a mile apart, the same size, but one old and needs a lot of work, and the other one appropriate to the use and at a much higher price.
it's not gonna get better, those buildings are gonna need a lot of upgrade, and the cost to upgrade is not going down. Every year, it's gonna continue to go up. And case in point, when I sat on your side, was looking at a business in Westford to move to Littleton, they've outgrown their space, they looked at renovation. They built a new building in Westford and stayed in Westford instead of coming to Littleton. So that problem's not gonna get better, you know? Who's gonna go and dump a lot of money into those buildings to bring them up to code, make them efficient? It's a problem that's, it's not gonna get better.
I can just follow on what Ivan said, too specific on the sewer treatment committee. I mean, it's been on the list of groups that we want to meet with to educate ourselves. It's not one of the ones we've met with so far. We've been mostly in the process of educating ourselves, bringing ourselves up to speed. That's one element we haven't, had the speech on. I think part of what Scott's presentation is key, is that we wanted, before we got into anything that would put us in a public spotlight, make sure we were on the page you wanted us to be on, and that before we started getting out into the public meeting with folks, that, we didn't want it getting back to the selectmen who appoint us, in a secondhand fashion. So I think we're conscious that we don't, we're an advisory committee to you, we don't have regulatory authority, we don't make laws, enforce them, and we don't make deals with businesses, but we can get you information and make recommendations to you. So I think that's one component of the whole process.
And the other thing is the technology that has come on small wastewater treatment plants now, just growing leaps and bounds. I mean, you can put something very small, in a very small area, compared to like huge leaching fields, et cetera, in the past.
And going back to your question about wastewater, that's another thing that we have to educate the community about too, because a lot of people don't understand the common, why we can't develop it, who's gonna pay for that kind of stuff.
And there's things we learned that we said, gee, everybody should know that, right? One of them was how many areas of town that would otherwise look ideal for development and so forth, you just can't. There's a lot of wetlands, there's a lot of water. And so there's places ideally near the interchanges with 495 would be great places to put businesses, but the point is almost the only one you can actually develop.
Right.
And so there's things we learn. We have talked a lot about sewering amongst ourselves. We haven't wanted to make any recommendations or decisions based on our own opinions. So as everyone has said, we have some more learning to do before we go further on that subject.
Anything else? Great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is roadway improvement plans. I know that this board has set in motion a road plan probably into our fifth year, and certain roads have been, Harvey Road and Bruce Street have been done. And I know right now we're working on the Shoulder, New Estate, and Nagon. Can you fill us in the progress, where we stand?
Yeah, Harvard Road's almost complete. They just worked on some punch list items last week, so that can be considered closed out. Just a few small things. The Shovel Road's been a little bit of a challenge with the Nagog Pond. Been working with the town of Concord, and we just recently went before the Conservation Commission for permits. We just went to the Planning Board last Thursday as well. The Conservation Commission is looking for a peer review on the plans, and that's in the works currently. So that's a couple weeks away, so we're not back to the Conservation, I think, until June 2nd. So that's kind of putting us behind a little bit, but it is what it is. New Estate Road is, question came up whether the road was accepted or not. And we can't find any documentation of the road being accepted, even though it's been in existence since before like 1830. So that's put a little bit of a hold on that. So we've researched with town council, and the recommendation is to prepare a plan for both New Estate and Nagog and get them accepted, hopefully accepted at a fall town meeting.
Given the financial investment in those roads, we want to make sure, they are on the list of accepted roads that is maintained in the town clerk's office, so at some point, in our history, someone in that office entered the names of those roads in the log, and we cannot verify after exhaustive search of town meeting records and old town reports where those, where the provenance is for those. So I can't.
Long enough to question,
And-
does it still exist?
There are plenty of private plans, all the abutters deeds have plans that show where the layout of the road is, and all of that, so we know where the road itself is. But the ones, before we spend $1 million on reconstructing the road, we really need to satisfy ourselves by going back to town meeting, accept the road as it exists, and then we will know with certain legal certainty what we already know, as a matter of fact, that it's a public way.
How long is that going to delay the project, Jim?
We're hoping it's not, because if we go to the fall town meeting, they've got a substantial amount of work done that they'll be able to work on New Estate through the winter. We're hoping to get started on Neshoba for this construction season, and then we'll be able to start New Estate next calendar year. And then Nagog, they're starting the engineering now, so that will, fall into place pretty easily.
So your concerns previously has been, as we knock these roads off, waiting for your design and engineering, you're ahead of the curve at this point?
Yeah, we're trying now.
Yeah.
That's throwing a, curveball to us because they were working on the design, and then we had to kind of stop until we find ownership, I guess. So that they're not working on the design, because what if the residents don't want us to accept it? I don't know why they would, but.
Yeah.
You notify one or two of them.
Well, ultimately, it's a vote at town meeting.
Yeah.
We'll do it as a layout of a public way, where this board will vote on the layout, and then we bring it to town meeting for approval. If we get that, we can proceed. The plan that's going to be prepared will be one that will absolutely minimize any notion that there's a taking without just compensation, that it'll be a plan that essentially memorializes what we know the road to be, what we can look at and see. So,
Yeah, so there won't be any takings. They haven't got that far on Nagog. I don't anticipate any takings there.
When do you think the show we're going to see construction?
Really depends on what happens with the peer review.
And who requested that, the Conscom?
Yeah. At this point, it probably would be September start, hopefully. Because it takes, to advertise for 2 weeks, accept bids for 2 weeks, review the bids, then you guys have to award the bid, get the paperwork submitted. You're looking at a 8 to 10 week process.
We should put you in the wintertime, huh?
Depends on the contractor, how big they are. There's a lot of work, but there's not a lot of drainage work like Harvard Road had over 3,000 feet of drainage. This is basically replace what's there, add a little more. But they will be excavating the road base out and replacing that, and that does take a little while.
So we have New Estate on the fluid document for 2015, then Nagog 2016, then we look at Tehadawon. And then moving out, you got Fort Pond, Taylor, Howard, Washington. Are there any, do you see any need to shuffle the deck, so to speak, due to big issues, sinkholes or anything like that, any public safety issues?
Not right now.
Okay. How about adding on, stick with 2021?
We're getting a lot of grief about my neighborhood, Mattawanaki Trail was close to being done. It got pushed off the list when the list got created. It's the last road in the neighborhood that needs to be done. Again, you're looking at 8 years out. You know, we need to increase spending, but, you know, the money isn't there, so we're doing what we can.
Well, I mean, you know, we've done it in the past where, I think Harvard Road was one of the roads that we kind of shuffled.
Yeah.
It just got to a point where it became a public safety issue. So, I mean, if there are roads out there that you're aware of that become a public safety issue, by all means, I think we should bring them forward and let's talk about it.
No, I'm comfortable the way the list is set right now.
Okay.
But some of those other roads are, you know, heavier travel. Like Taylor Street, you know, Tahadawon Road.
Right.
That.
So, my last question, is the $1 million that town meeting just passed for, why don't you give us a little update as to what that's about?
Sure. This, the $1 million borrowing authorization is in addition to our previous $1 million borrowing authorization for this roadway plan. And we looked at that a few years ago because these roads just happen to be significant investments in funding. The plan is that the $1 million will be repaid in short-term notes, so less than 5 years. So we won't have to place it permanently, and it will be paid inside the levy. So there's no debt exclusion votes that were taken for this. It's all planned in the budget worksheets that we have currently in place. We'll retire them, you know, we'll pay them down each year as we need to. But we knew we were going to need a significant amount of money to do these 3 roads. So.
Any other questions?
The only other thing we want to mention is that we do have $58,000 burning a hole in our pocket that the state has additional money that they gave to each of the cities and towns. And our allotment is $58,000. And we have to commit it by June 30 and then expend it by September, I think. But we're talking, there are, on the page 2 of the memo for tonight at the bottom, there's just some suggestions of things that we might spend it on, one of which is the Russell Street sidewalk, which for our next meeting, our next regular meeting on June 9th, we'll be having Sam Park here for an update on the point. And we'll also be asking him prior to that. We're completed with the design of the sidewalk, and that's the point in our agreement with Sam that triggers $65,000 donation from him for the construction of the sidewalk. It will cost us more than that to construct the sidewalk. We can use other, you know, Chapter 90 funds or whatever, but if we wanted to commit it to a particular purpose, we could certainly use that $58,000 for the sidewalk, which we will be doing, and we want to have that in place. You know, it would be great if it could be in place by the time there's an official opening for the point in the fall.
Do we know what that project's gonna cost yet? Do you have any ideas?
The engineer's estimate is $100,000 with contingency.
Okay, so now you're still at 14,000 on total.
And the rest can be used for, you know,
Yeah.
crack sealing or
Yeah.
potholes or whatever, so.
You don't need a motion on that, though, do you?
No, you need, there's paperwork that we'll
Yeah.
fill out, so we'll just,
Yeah.
if the sidewalk sounded like the top of the list of things to do.
So we have to, because it says that it's they have to approve your project, so we'd have to submit, see if that's something that they would allow us to do. The fallback position for me is crack sealing. We're concerned that we have such a tight timeline, again, to put a project together, go out to bid, do all the legal documents, and we're in the same boat as 351 other towns that are trying to go for the same contractors, the same paving guys. So it's a use-or-lose situation for money. So it's kind of a big concern to get something that can be done relatively quick.
So we can try to commit, if they approve the project for the sidewalk, and we can schedule that to get it done by the fall. That works, if not, then crack sealing.
Crack sealing it is.
Next on the agenda is the solid waste tipping fees. This project is mentioned, there were 5 years, it'll save the town $5,000. That would the rate volume.
That's correct, that's correct. Tessa from MassTOS was able to negotiate a deal with the towns of Groton and Harvard for their tipping fees. And as part of the discussion that she had with the provider, she said, well, what if we included, Littleton, even though we had come to an agreement last August? And because, there's a larger group of communities, they were able to negotiate a better deal. So it's not a huge savings, but it is a savings over the life of the contract. So we were thankful for Tessa to include us in those discussions. And
It's actually, well, it's a little confusing. We approved one amendment to the contract, which was gonna save us substantial money. I don't know the exact number, because it was gonna bring our rates way down. The rates fluctuate. It's very strange the way they structured it. Right now, we go up by the consumer price index. We're paying about 88.20 per ton, and he was gonna go down to, I think this one says 77, then it goes down to 72. It's very strange, but we were gonna continue on that escalation until you signed the amendment last August, and we were in renegotiation with them, and that's, the $5,000 is an additional savings on the one that you negotiated in August. Because there was another vendor involved that made them sharpen that pencil a little bit more. And we weren't under a tight timeline to get it done, so it's just taking a little time.
All good?
Why wouldn't we do this? Is there any drawback? It sounds great.
Oh, no.
Great.
I think part of the issue is there's a lot of capacity now for disposal, because with all the recycling going on, there's excess capacity, so it drives the price down. Previously, there was, everybody was at the max, so they could charge what they wanted. Now, because of the recycling, it's more competitive.
Good stuff. Page your throat, being successful. With the motion, Mr. Chair? Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize execution of amendment number 1 to the Town Disposal Services Contract with Coventa Energy of Haverhill, Mass. through June 30, 2018, to amend ton rates as follows. $88.20 per ton for fiscal year 2014, no change. From 72 to 77 for fiscal year 15, from 72 to 68 for fiscal year 16, from 73 to 70 for fiscal year 2017, from 74 to 72 for fiscal year 2018.
Second. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Yes, sir.
Love that transfer station.
6A talks about the town meeting recap and follow-up. Keith, what do we need to follow up?
Yeah, there's no particular action items here, but I just wanted to go through a few things. We've updated with all the departments what their next steps are. You'll be seeing a number of procurements coming forward in the future for vehicles and so forth. There's a long list of building projects this year that the PMBC will be undertaking. So while those are under their jurisdiction, along with whoever the host committee is, if it's Park and Rec or schools or whatever, we'll want to schedule, I think, some periodic updates with PMBC, because we've got about $600,000 worth of building projects that will be going on this year. We had the 500 and some thousand in the facilities recommendations, plus another 100 for high school roofs. So there's a lot of activity going on there. I wanted to call out one, the master plan update for 100,000. One of the things that we'll be wanting to do is to actually schedule a future agenda item on the establishment of a steering committee for the master plan. Met with the planning board and talked with them. They're amenable to establishing this steering committee. The master plan is a document that the planning board creates. However, we've got a lot of other stakeholders, EDC in particular. It's just really a gamut of many town boards and departments and citizens, I think, would be interested to make sure that the master planning process, because it will be so expensive, And because it would, if we want to have it, if we want to get our money's worth out of it, we need to have a lot of people invested in it. Town meeting appropriated the first $100,000 towards the master plan update. Our working estimate is about $250,000 to do a master plan update. We've identified as the first step, or the next step, establishing the master plan steering committee, and then having the committee work on a scope of services that we issue an RFP and sort of go on from there. It's not an action item for tonight, though, because we actually need to do some negotiation between this board and the planning board over how that master plan steering committee will be configured. But it definitely, planned that it would have representation from EDC has stood up and indicated that it's something they want to be involved with. I'm sure we'll have others as well, so that will be a next step. And we'll be following up to make sure with the zoning amendments that were passed, including the new one for medical marijuana, that those are followed up and that we can get action from the Attorney General on our bylaws. The last category that I want to mention is that there's a whole list of projects approved with community preservation funds, and we're working with the CPC and with the entities that have been granted the funds to have, in some cases, grant agreements. We want to do that. We had used that mechanism with funds for the Housing Authority and with private entities. So some of those documents will be coming forward to this board as grant agreements once we work those through the Community Preservation Committee. And just as a bigger picture item, because it had come up as an area of concern during our town meeting budget process, we will want to schedule some future agenda time. I think probably a joint meeting between Finance Committee and the Community Preservation Committee and the Selectmen to talk about how to integrate the CPC and the use of CPA funds into our basic financial policies and procedures of the town. It's a lot of money. It can't be off book. It needs to, the needs are for especially things like open space and recreation rehab are in the millions. Those are important issues that the community has told us that they want us to be able to address. We need to be programming those years in advance and not just have them, come up on be entertaining an application when it comes up right before town meeting. So we've got the commitment, I think, there was some excellent communication on the eve of town meeting between CPC and FinCom, and I think there's the commitment to work together to integrate the community preservation funding process into the way the town does its budgeting and long-term fiscal planning. But we'll need to follow up with some specific joint meetings, get some procedures in place of how that would happen. But the stakes are high too, because with as I mentioned earlier, the adoption of the approval of question 1 of the ballot means that we have the ability, if we want to do it and if we can target it right, we have the ability to go after some pretty big bucks from state matching funds. Bonnie had crunched the numbers that we have the potential to bring in maybe $111,000 per year in grant in state matching funds that we're not getting now. It would require that we first direct funds into the Community Preservation Fund so that they're there for the purpose of calculating the state match. Before we do that, though, we ought to have complete agreement that we need to use those funds on CPA.
There'll be long
projects.
discussions, I'm sure. Everybody's gonna come out and.
So lots of quality time we'll need to spend on that. The target, though, just so we're aware of it, I think our target would need to be the fall town meeting, because the next time we have a town meeting will be the first opportunity to put funds into the CPA fund to increase the base for state match. So we've got plenty of time to have the discussions, but I think it's important to just flag that. Those would be good goals for us to be focusing on and having
Pretty
A lot of
aggressive,
people are gonna have
pretty
to-
aggressive to think of, I mean, based on conversations we've had in the past, pretty aggressive to say fall, but with summer coming up, I think it's.
Yeah, I think we've got.
Good start.
Yeah, if we make the fall, we have the ability to bring in $100,000 that we wouldn't otherwise see. So it's sort of that's the carrot there, if we want to grab it, so.
Just
And that's
one last comment about that, and I know I've brought it up in the past about the capital equipment and the purchasing. I mean, I think we saw it with the CPC funds, the $14,000, a project that had already been approved and had to go back in, so, go back into the housing account. Just, if we can start to schedule, start to think about something about bringing forward twice a year, every quarter maybe, or every 6 months, some type of update. Here's what town meeting said to go out and buy for capital equipment, here's where we stand, so.
Great.
Yeah, we need to keep that going, I think.
Moving on, then, let's go. Consent agenda.
All right, being the previous clerk, I will make the motions for the minutes. The April 14th minutes, I see, Joe, you weren't here, so it's just Alex and I that can vote on it. I'll make a motion to approve the Board of Selectmen meeting minutes for Monday, April 14th, 2014.
Second.
Are you in
Not my choice
favor?
of-
Are you in favor?
I don't know if we can even do this.
I think he
Maybe a physical impossibility.
Well,
I think you have to, yeah.
well, you have to, and in fact, all of you can vote on it, because you will never have a quorum of people that were there. You will never have a quorum of selectmen, 3 selectmen, to vote on those meeting minutes. So the only solution is for those of you who are here now to vote on it. Doesn't matter that you weren't there at the time.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of accepting April 14th minutes as written, signify by saying aye.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for Monday, May 5th, 2014. The special, no, this is a meeting before the special town meeting.
Seconded. Been moved and seconded for the meeting that was in May 5th, right before town meeting. All those in favor? Say
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, now I seek a motion to go into executive session and have a roll call vote after it.
All right, move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A, 3, to go into executive session to discuss strategy with response to collective bargaining, since an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the board, and not to convene an open session thereafter.
Before we move, point of clarification, since we're posted, should we be doing the same thing, the FinCom?
Yeah, you have a quorum?
We do.
Yeah.
Okay.
On our side, roll call vote. Melissa? Just aye. Aye. Myself, aye. Aye, Gary?
Likewise.
Sorry, should I run this way? See?
Sorry.
Alan?
Yes. FinCom ditto.
Betsy?
Yes.
Paul? Yeah. This is Steve?
Yes.
Okay. And Chris, over here, right?
This button over there.